Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Way to Value inside By Design Advisors Studio. I'm here again with my partner, Marty Osborne. And today, Marty, what I really want to talk to you about, because it's in the news, is how the people business is changing due to AI.
Yeah.
And I know some people will probably think, oh, you know, you're going to talk about robots taking over jobs. And it's not really what we want to talk about today. We could, but we want to talk more about how AI and businesses are intersecting today and what's causing it. The reason I bring this up is, you know, I think we've all probably read where Amazon just announced they're laying off hundreds of thousands of workers due to AI, 27,000 of those being in corporate jobs because AI has made them redundant.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be 75% basically robots
Yeah.
within a few years. The other one is, you know, I know we've got close ties to Accenture, and we talked about it a little bit a couple episodes ago about how Accenture's laying off thousands of employees, and their litmus test is basically who's been using AI and who's familiar with it and who's not. And if you're a have not, you're probably getting a knock on your door, theoretically. So just want to dive into all those aspects with you today, get your thoughts, because I know you and I have been using it and playing around with it and learning more and more and more about the power of it. So yeah, what are your initial thoughts on the latest announcements in the news?
I think, one thing that jumps out at me is you think about as a leader in today's world or a business owner, like how complicated it just continues to get. The game keeps changing. I mean, you know, I'm a big football fan, college football fan, you are. And if you think about just the landscape in the last 2 years, whatever worked before isn't working, right? We always say what got you here is not going to get you there. And now we're seeing this even play out more in the business and the people side, is that if you're not growing yourself, if you're not, you know, what are you doing each and every day to make yourself better, then most likely you're going to fall behind. And it could be, right, losing a job. It could be not finding the next job, not getting the promotion. And so to me, I think really the message is we have to be diligent. We have to be relentless in our pursuit of new knowledge. If not, we're getting left behind.
Yeah, there's an AI race going on. And again, from the people side, which is where my passion and what I love doing, there is an AI race going on between job hunters and organism and hirers, recruiters, HR folks. And it's even video interviews now. The latest is people will have their Chat GPT on their phone, and it's basically listening and spitting out answers, and then people are just reading it. And
by the way, I haven't heard that.
Yeah. So not only is your resume now put into AI and say, make me look like a superstar. Hey, prepare me for all the questions and right answers. Now it's actually listening and spitting out key points as you're interviewing online. And so, yeah, it's kind of funny. I could sidetrack into stories where now people like scan the room with your laptop because they want to make sure nothing's there. But again, you can't see the phone, so it's listening through the phone. Interesting topics, though. But yeah, that's why the AI race is on. And if you're ignoring it, you're going to be left behind. And I know you always like to say, hey, we just got to be better.
Yeah. I don't think there's never the right, wrong. And people could get into the argument of why that's AI is bad or whether it's good. It just is. We saw this years ago with the internet, right? There was that battle between the connectivity and not being connected. And at some point in time, it's not whether it's good or bad, is it going to be here or not? It's here and it is what it is, and we've got to deal with it. What I think's evolving is we're moving from the connected worker, which was always, how did we move away from the desktop? Somebody the other day, I was looking to buy like a golf simulator, and it says you need a desktop computer, and you're kind of like, yeah, can you even buy one? I
haven't seen one in years.
I haven't seen one in years. And so that evolution is no longer is there desktops. Everything is connected laptops, phones, that kind of stuff. So we've seen this evolution. We're seeing this each and every day with the tool sets in AI that are just making us different, right? And is it better or is it worse? Not the argument. Mm-hmm. But I think at the end of the day, when we look, and I think Accenture really knew that if I needed to know my employees are growing and being better, how do I do that? How do I know? Because I can't tell what they're reading. I don't know the podcasts. I don't know the education level. But all of a sudden, they started putting all these tools online, and they called it, I think, the reinvention console, which says, how am I as an individual reinventing myself? And look, companies are watching that. They're watching which employees are using things, using the tools provided, trying things. And at the end of the day, are you going to choose an employee who is open to new technologies, trying it, may not work, may fail, may be better, or someone who just says, I don't understand it, I can't grasp it? Well, if you're saying that, then can you grasp where the world's going?
Yeah, and I want to go back to the hiring example I gave using the phone. The other key point is it doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree or think that's ethical or unethical. I could make an argument. Put me on either side, I'll make an argument.
Yeah.
It's a tool you can use, so why can't I use it? And I could also see, well, that's not really you. You shouldn't use it, but it doesn't matter. Like you said, it's here. So how are companies going to get better? And I think it puts even more of an emphasis on doing assessments. They're harder to fake. Yes, could you theoretically throw the questions in and say which answer? But there's not a right or wrong with the assessments we use. We always say it's not right or wrong. It's just people are different, but they're predictably different.
Yeah.
So it's harder to fake. Yeah, you can get a result out of AI, but it doesn't do you any good to fake it.
Do you remember there was a movie called The Intern where Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn were two older guys applying to be interns. And you get in these interviews and the question was, you're in a blender and it's going, and how do you get out? And it was kind of a funny, like the reaction, and you don't have to go into that. But we always thought like Google or whatever, we throw these crazy questions and somehow they're going to tell us about an individual, or we're going to get really smart and tricky. Well, in today's world with all the tools, I think those things go away. And it's back to what you said on the assessments. It really is more important to understand what drives energy and what takes it out. And once you do those assessments, your interviews start to take a different tone. And I'll give you an example. I was interviewing a salesperson, and we always say, if you don't have the gift of either I or G, my guess is every day you wake up, you got to talk to people, you've got to do things, they're going to struggle. And based on this person's resume, I knew a lot about them without knowing about them. And then when I asked questions, they either made sense because they tied to the personality or they didn't. And when I asked this person, why were they leaving their job? Well, their job was twofold. And I said, he was a very high, very social person, galvanizer, wants to be involved in people. He loved chasing new work. He loved doing that piece. But part of his job was technical support as well. So he had to deal with all the problems. And what do you think happened?
He got frustrated. If he's an ET frustration, he was in his frustration zone.
He was in his frustration because he was an IG. So he's an inventor galvanizer who wants to be creative, wants to think about ideas, wants to get excited, which is what a lot of that hunter sales mentality. But then 50% or more of his job was dealing with problems. And so we can get into this, basically AI world, whatever his answer. I didn't really care the way he said it or how he said it. What I wanted to see was his answer really tied to his personality? And usually you can uncover stuff through those tools.
Yeah, and the goal is going to be how you implement these things in your processes, right? So if you're a company, we always say the way to value, where are you now? So I think if you're a company, the first step I would do is, where are we in our AI? Are people even experimenting? Are we using it personally? Are we using it in our individual roles? And then how do we start to implement those processes into our business processes? Again, to me, it's really easy for like job descriptions, and it'll print you out one pretty easy, right? So if you're still trying to come up with those yourself, starting from scratch, no. If you're put it in the Chat GPT, at least get the framework, and then you go back and tweak it and customize it to your specific organization. The other thing it's getting interesting is taking taking a job description, taking their Disc and Working Genius, throwing that into Chat GPT, and just kind of telling me where are they going to really succeed and love it, and where are
Yeah.
potential friction points. Again, it's not perfect, but it starts to get you thinking, okay, here's maybe where we need to help this person. Hey, they may need a little more training here. Now you have more of a customized onboarding for each employee. You
Yeah.
kind of know them who to pair them with, what experiences they're going to need, and it cuts that onboarding time frame from maybe 6 months down to 2 or 3, because you
Right.
know exactly
Right.
where their friction and struggle
Yeah.
points are going to
And
be.
it's funny because we always get down to, well, I have 2 or 3 people
Hmm.
and I don't know which one to hire. And I'm always like, well, if we know the personality profiles and we know that their stories match up with that, then you can't go wrong. But most likely, when people say I have 2 or 3 people, it's because they like them as
Yep.
people, but they have not really dug into what is that drives them. And again, I'll use another example is an IG, right? So if you're looking for sales, again, it's always interesting. As I'm trying to hire a salesperson, and we always ask the same question: are you looking for a hunter or a farmer?
Hmm.
Two totally different skills. And so if somebody really we want a hunting role, then an IG, right? Inventor, galvanizer, high I on the disc, high D on the disc, very quick to decisions. They love that kind. And I asked again, a question is if I see this and I have a role, is I'll ask a hunting question. Tell me a great story about how you actually found one of your better clients. And I heard one of the funniest replies to that is, I could never get into the person, never would answer my emails, my texts, nothing. So I noticed when I went on like social media, I noticed this person was a big swimmer and they used to like to go to this club and swim every morning. So what do you think that person did? They
Legally stalk them.
legally stalked them. They donned a bathing suit. They showed up at the club. They started swimming. And ultimately, they kind of had something in common. They found what they were doing and ultimately became friends, became a customer. Now we're lifelong friends. Again, it just says, can I find out about what people are doing? If I was an ET, if I was not a galvanizer or a low I, do you think I would have done that strategy?
Yeah. Yeah. Shameless plug here in the middle is we still are doing free disc
Yeah.
assessments. They're free all the time. There's always an active link, usually in the video bio. If not, you can go to our website, bydesignadvisors.com, and a little button will pop up to say, take the free
Yeah. If you
disc
haven't taken that
assessment.
test, I'm like, how do you know where you are?
Yeah. And again, we've talked about this in previous episodes too. ChatGPT is very good because it's fast at data analysis. If it's predictable and repeatable, it's pretty dang good. So if you have your team take these things, it's easy. You don't have to connect the dots yourself. You can kind of dump it in there and just say, hey, where are the challenges? Where are possible friction points? How does my team react when I change?
Yeah.
It'll spit you out 80% accurate how, and you can now change and make your team more effective, which is again where the magic is, and where we make a lot of our organizations better, is just helping them get all that data, get the assessments, and then making it make sense, and allowing them to be better leaders.
Yeah, I had a really funny example too with my sister because my brother-in-law is he's he's an inventor, he's a wonder. So if you think about it, he's always thinking about ideas where my sister is really the ET. She's like seeks clarity. She's probably a GT really when I look at it because she's a galvanizer. She loves to preach, but she seeks clarity. And we were just talking about some crazy idea. We were at a restaurant and we are like, gosh, could have made it better if they did this. And my brother-in-law was throwing ideas out. And then my sister's like, oh, that's the dumbest idea, right? And I laughed and I said, you dream killer. Like, just let him. He's just wondering. And it is funny because wonders just want to get things out where tenacity people, high C's, see clarity. And what happens is we start butting heads, which in actually it why people then don't like each other. You get into fights, you get into battles, but they actually need each other. But if there's a time for ideas and then there's a time for clarity, they just have to recognize it. And when I explain it to them, they kind of just laugh and they see where that source of frustration is. If we're going to carry forward this idea, at some point in time, we need our clarity people to either throw it out or move, figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I have a recent example too of how maybe what got you into position isn't what you need going forward. I had a final destination moment this weekend in a car wash. So I took my new car into the car wash, had an equipment malfunction. I'm not going to name the car wash yet, but stay tuned if they don't pay to fix it. And it just did a lot of damage to my car. Did about 8K worth of damage, scratched my hood, busted out my grill, shattered my windshield. Like, it was a little scary being sitting in there going, I may die if this thing comes through my window. But the district manager called me, and I can already tell you, if I had to guess, which I'm pretty good at this stuff, she's a low I on the disc. So she's not really people focused, but she is very high C. Because all she wanted to do was tell me about their company policies
rule
and
book.
the 20 steps I needed to do, because that was just the company policy. And it didn't go well. I was, again, my brand new car just got 8K worth of damage. And you're telling me that I have to follow all your policies, and I don't care about your policies. I really don't. I just want my car fixed.
Right.
And so her personality assessment, being low I, high C, it might be great in some instances because she's probably
They love it. Follow the rules.
Follow the rules.
Follow
And
the
I
rules.
understand why companies want the people to follow the rules. But when it's a customer-facing interaction where you're probably going to be dealing with pissed off customers all the time,
They don't
I
wanna
would
hear about
argue
the
you
rules.
don't want a high C in that role.
Mm-mm. You don't want to be quoted. I mean, I talked about it. I think it was the, my wife's dress for my son's wedding, and it was the different color, and all they kept quoting was the store policy. You have a contract. You have a contract. This is the contract. We're not responsible for anything. It's like the biggest day of your life, and the only thing they could say is, you have a contract.
Yep. If you have to go back, and I think I said it on that episode, I remember that story. If you're in an argument with a customer and you're going to contracts or policies, you're losing.
You're
You may
losing.
think you're winning, but you're losing, because
No.
that person, you're probably going to lose that business. And not only that, I'm now on a podcast, pretty popular podcast.
Yeah, talking
not
about
naming
it.
them yet, but I'm going to
Yeah.
name them soon.
Yeah.
And so how much more business is that costing you? And of course, I've told all my friends know where it is, and none of them are going to take their cars there. So you've just done it all because you just want to quote policies.
Yeah,
and
you might win the
contracts.
battle, but you've lost the war. One other thing, Dale, I think some of the things you've done that I think are really cool too is we talk a lot about the individual, but then taking the organization. Like, one of the fun things we do with clients is we just did this for 125 people within their organization. And then you take all this data and they're like, well, what type of organization do we have? And based on that data, we take it, feed it in. It's kind of eye-opening what comes back.
Yeah, I call it my magic trick, and I probably shouldn't give this. It's like a
Give the
magician
secret.
reveal.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we get the disc and working genius, and again, I think you have to have both. I can put it in and I get all the insights, and you kind of start to say, okay, this is a fast moving organization, or no, this is more compliant, slow moving. And I love to start my presentations with, I'm just going to give you my initial thoughts. You tell me if I'm close. And I go through, hey, it sounds like this
Like the
company
great Karnak.
yeah. And every time, I've yet to have somebody say, no, that's not everyone's like, wow. And I'm like, I've never met any of you people. I don't know any of you people, but if I was to come in and lead this organization, I already kind of have a roadmap. And they're just like, yeah, that's us. That's totally us. So
Yeah.
it is a hack in a way. But again, be better. You have to have those assessments. You have to use AI. You have to use all these tools, and putting your head in the sand isn't a recipe for success.
No, and I think it really is. Organizations are puzzles. They're not simple. And again, every time when we had another meeting with the CEO, and he just said, God, hiring people is hard. It's the hardest thing we do. And we kind of looked at him and said, it's hard. I get it. But it really is easy if you follow a process. If you really start to understand what is it the role takes, not just because we've seen them. I mean, I'm so sick of looking at job descriptions that all say the same thing.
Yep.
5 years experience, 3 years of this, 2 years of that. Excellent communication
demonstrated
skills.
ability to.
I mean, resume, let's just be honest. Like, all of this stuff it's crap. It really is like we say permission to play. No, we want you to not be able to read, not be able to write. You shouldn't be able to communicate. Like nobody's going to say that. So why are we putting it there? So what we really need to know is we need to understand that personality prototype, type and basically fit that job because most jobs we see all the time is when the person is in their not in their working genius, but in their working frustration, that they're doing things that counteract to who they are as an individual.
Yeah, people are different, but they're predictably different if you have these tools. And it's okay to be different, and we want different. You talked
Yeah.
about how the W eventually needs that T, right? And the T of it needs that W, and we all need the different profiles. But if you think about it too in a different way, these assessments really are a mini AI, right? They're taking data from how this person likes to communicate, make decision, interact with others, and kind of spitting out a here's
Yeah.
what they love to do, here's what they don't necessarily love to do. So again, why are we not using it? And I always say, one thing by design advisors does, or what we try to do, right, is we try to align people, processes, and purpose across the organization,
Right.
from the very top to the entry level worker. And AI can help you do that with these
Yeah.
assessments with AI. So again, yeah, I just keep saying, don't stick your head in the sand. You don't
No,
be
and
scared of it.
yeah, and again, our job really is to help educate and open people's eyes. I still think when we did our interview with Furman and the Hill Institute, and Eric Cooperman used the word fresh eyes, like I still love that because as again, in the world we're in and the stuff that we're faced with, sometimes we just need that set of fresh eyes. And when we come in by doing these personality assessments, by getting them to understand, like all of a sudden that light bulb, we always wanted to say like the light bulb pops off in your head. Like now I understand why that meeting didn't go well, right? We always say this when you have a meeting and nobody does this is we should say, is this an idea meeting or an execution meeting? Because what happens is we put idea people with execution, they don't know what it is. And all it turns into is some people dreaming, some people wanting clarity. They're yelling, you're dream killers. Like, why do you have to be this way? They're like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And they digress and walk away and they say it was the worst meeting ever. And it is the worst meeting ever. But if you walk in and say, we're in a meeting to discover and to think about ideas, look, for all you T people and clarity, we understand you're going to feel uncomfortable here. Just put your pens down. Once we can settle on an idea and we now have a game plan, now we need to let the clarity people and us idea people need to shut up.
Yep.
We can't keep changing. I always said the worst meetings and the worst CEOs is when the flag just keep like we decide to put the flag and then the CEO picks up the flag and every week is running around with it. You talk about frustrating your team, and it's why people leave. Again, people leave jobs when they're frustrated that they're not making a difference, that they're not being heard. And usually it's tied back to their personality in not that they don't like their leader. Their leader could be a really great person. It's just if they're a W and they're an I, they're going to have that flag and they just keep running with it. And our T's are just like, they don't want to be part of it.
Yeah, and it goes to the three complexity traps we always talk about: strategic alignment, focus, and execution. And when you have a CEO that's running around, you can't be aligned, you can't focus, and you can't execute because you don't know what you're supposed to be executing on. And we see it all the time.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think if you kind of boil this down, and again, what we're seeing in the evolution of technology and, whether you want it or not, I think you have to embrace it. It's so easy to use. It's in our Copilot. It's in our everyday Microsoft Outlook. ChatGPT is free. Just go have a conversation with it. People are like, well, I don't know what to do. I mean, literally, it's a box and type something in and say, hey, tell me about this subject. I'm curious about electric vehicles versus gas powered vehicles, or how would you compare this to that? Just see what it says. And I think you'll kind of be amazed that just that feedback starts to open up new ideas and, I think makes you a better person.
And if you're a leader of an organization, just type in, tell me what you know about your organizational name. So like type in, tell me about By Design Advisors, and it'll just start spitting stuff out. And
Yeah.
it's kind of eye opening what they put. Some of it's really, really good. And some of it's like, where did they get that? But
Well, I think and again, we talked about this in the marketing world, like SEO has changed, right? We used to be able to dictate what we want people, and I talk about this in my book, like what is it that we want people to say about us when we're not in the room?
mhm.
And SEO used to be a website and we would put all these keywords in of what we wanted said. Well, SEO is actually almost no longer relevant. It's now ChatGPT, which is pulling all of our documents, it's pulling things we've said, any interviews, and it's now forming an opinion about who we are. And so I think that's changing. And as individuals or companies, we have to be a little bit aware that whether we like it or not, that is being generated.
Yeah, good stuff, Marty. And you know, at By Design Advisors, we do and always will say you win with your people, but that how you do that is changing. And again, you need to lean into it. You need to learn and learn how to use these tools to make your people even better. So thanks for the thoughts again, Marty. And test for you all: is this real or was this an AI video? Put it in the comments. Until next time, thanks everybody.